Hey, we want to welcome you to session 2 of Starting Point. Hopefully you had a great discussion last week as we started off with the question, what happened after the crucifixion? And we're going to continue the discussion today. So if you were able to watch the full message online, we discussed the issue of sin and how much we don't like to use that word because it sounds ridiculous when we point out, say, someone sinned. If we went through the drive-thru and they got our order wrong, there is not a single one of us who would look through at the drive-thru attendant and say, you sinned, you got my order wrong. And so it's a term that we don't often use. But the problem is that it's a term that we actually need. Normally today, we refer to absolutely everything as a mistake. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter to what degree it is. It doesn't matter how much it hurts someone else. We call everything a mistake. And so we do make mistakes. I make mistakes on math problems. I make mistakes within my grammar. Those are mistakes. Those are errors that I'm unaware of, didn't do on purpose, that I can fix in the future. The problem is that we call some things mistakes that we keep doing wrong over and over and over and over again. Sometimes we call things mistakes that we plan to do wrong in advance. I don't know how many of us have actually asked for forgiveness in advance for the thing that we know that we're going to do wrong. And that doesn't line up. Those things are more serious than a mistake. And so when you do the same thing wrong over and over and over again, and you go to apologize to someone, you just say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It doesn't actually heal the relationship. It doesn't actually make things right. Because if you've ever had someone do that to you, you understand intuitively, you're thinking, they're not really sorry. They're going to do it again. Now, there's another term that has traditionally been used throughout history to refer to those things that we do wrong, that we know are wrong, and that we do on purpose. We call them sins. Now, again, we don't like that term. None of us would actually use that in common everyday language. And we don't like that term for a number of different reasons. First off, it's kind of a theological term. It's a faith term that doesn't always make its way into our everyday language. But the other thing is the fear that is associated with the word sin. Because if we actually get pointed out that we have sinned, what we automatically assume is that we're going to be condemned in the process. Whenever we see in the media someone has done these horrific things wrong that we're very aware they knew what they were doing was wrong, we fully expect them to be condemned because of it. And so we shy away from that term because not any one of us wants to be condemned. And so we're stuck in this really odd spot where we can't use the term sin because it means we're going to be condemned, but we understand that the word mistake doesn't have enough gravity, doesn't have enough weight to it to actually show that what we're doing is wrong. And when we keep using the term mistake for things that we know are wrong, what we actually do is we cause more damage. And so we see this incredible story in the life of Jesus in which a woman is brought before him who is in error, who has done many, many things that are wrong, not mistakes. She does them on purpose. And she's brought before Jesus, and these religious leaders in this day, they say, this woman has sinned. And she doesn't refute it because she absolutely knows that she has sinned. So they bring him before Jesus and says, she has sinned. And they want to carry out discipline. They want to carry out a punishment to her. And Jesus kind of dodges the question for a minute, and then they keep pressing it further. And then he says, let he who is without sin throw the first stone. That was the punishment that they were going to carry out on her. And it says they begin slipping away, starting with the oldest, the ones who were the most aware of the many sins that they had committed, showing that we have all sinned. And then ending with the youngest until only Jesus and this woman were left. And then Jesus asked her a question. He says, has no one condemned you? And she says, no, sir. And Jesus responds, then neither do I. And what Jesus shows us in that moment is so incredibly important, that we can own the depth of what we've done wrong, and yet he doesn't condemn us in that moment. That you don't have to be afraid to actually admit the things that you've done wrong and to call them what they actually are, to call them sins, because Jesus doesn't condemn you. And so we see this important point. You are not condemned when you accept the label of sinner, but you cause further damage when you will only own up to a mistake. So that's where our discussion is going to take us today.